So while we've been focused, obviously, on the killing of Charlie Kirk, understandably, a lot has been transpiring here with regards to Israel. In particular, Marco Rubio, we can put those images up on the screen. Marco Rubio made a trip to Israel, and here we have him and Mike Huckabee there, along with Netanyahu, and I believe that was Ben-Gvir, praying there at the Western Wall. So we've, how many politicians do we have with photos that look just like this, Democrat and Republican, that just being the very latest. But that's not all. Put this up on the screen. There has been a renewed, invigorated effort to crack down on any sort of anti-Israel sentiment. In particular, we have a new bill that has been floated that would give Marco Rubio what The Intercept is describing as thought police power to revoke U.S. passports. So this dovetails with the government's argument that when it came to Mahmoud Khalil and green card holders, that they could themselves, Marco Rubio himself, deem him to be a material supporter of terrorism based on really nothing and revoke his green card. So this bill would give Rubio the ability to deny passports to U.S. citizens that he similarly deemed to have provided material support for terrorism. Now, the only thing that the government ever proffered with regard to Mahmoud Khalil is basically his involvement in these pro-Palestine protests that occurred at Columbia University. There was no indication that they have never been able to indicate that he was directly tied to Hamas or providing them direct support in any sort of way. So that's why this sort of legislation is so unnerving, because it would put in the hands of Marco Rubio directly the ability to say, oh, I didn't like what you said there. I'm going to say that's material support for terrorism. Guess what? We're pulling your passport and you can no longer travel abroad.
Yeah, this is scary stuff. And denaturalization has kind of been a dream for people in the anti-terrorism space now for quite a long time, because it's very pesky. It gets in the way of being able to kill your own citizens. If you'll remember during the Anwar al-Awlaki thing during the drone strike, his citizenship is the only thing that saved him from even the pretense of due process and everything. And so this is, of course, what exactly would be their dream. I mean, I'm generally hopeful that it wouldn't go through. It doesn't look like it's one which has a ton of support. It is, of course, sponsored by Brian Mast. Anybody remember who that is? The guy who wore the IDF uniform into the U.S. Congress. Weird indeed. Combine it.
Got his priorities straight.
Well, it's just crazy. I mean, you have Huckabee and Rubio at the Western Wall, paying their respects. Fine. I mean, I've been to the Western Wall. I put a note in it or whatever. But it's one of those where they do it now at this point as an explicit expression of political support for the state and then for the war. And then on top of that, they do it in the context of all of this extraordinary Israeli action, like the West Bank, which we're going to show people in a little bit. It's explicitly to be like, we're here, this is part of the reason, it's religious justification, and that justifies the support for all of this secular state of Israel behavior. It's totally nuts.
Yeah.
It's totally nuts.
No, the idea here behind this Brian Mast bill is basically like, if you oppose the genocide that our country is supporting being conducted directly by Israel, we're going to pull your passport. We're going to crack down on you. And obviously they have a track record of doing exactly that already. And that wasn't the only move that was made, though. Lauren Boebert also got in on the action. You can put this next one up on the screen. We've got a new bill that just passed the House punishing politically motivated boycotts of Israel. Lauren Boebert apparently added this amendment to the Pentagon budget that targets the BDS movements against Israel. They say in a first step toward a federal law punishing criticism of Israel, House of Representatives on Wednesday passed a massive defense budget that would bar companies engaged in what they describe as politically motivated boycotts of Israel from getting Pentagon contracts. The bill would effectively ban contractors boycotting Israel from tapping most federal contract dollars, since more more than half of the $755 billion the U.S. government spent on contracts last year flowed through the Defense Department. So if you are a company that has any sort of a principled boycott against Israel, you will be banned from any sort of Pentagon contracts, which is a vast dollar amount in terms of the total amount of contracts given out by the federal government.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's totally crazy. And,
Absolutely.
we were talking earlier, and I was like, where do we need cancel culture or consequence culture? Looking at it right here. And yet, obviously, if anything, it's the inverse, where if you say anything, you just get nuked, by the pro-Israel side on this. In fact, there's probably no area of political discourse which has faced more cancel culture than this in the last, 24 months since October 7th?
Well, and we're going to talk more about this tomorrow and dig into this more. But I mean, this was something that Charlie Kirk was starting to talk about, the level of pressure he felt about staying, on message with regard to Israel, and that he felt more free to criticize his own government than to criticize this foreign government, which I think millions of Americans are reacting, feeling the same way. Like, what is going on here? These are your legislative priorities? Is this like anti-BDS, criminalizing any sort of boycott of Israel, making sure that American citizens can have their passports pulled if they don't toe the line with regard to Israel? Absolutely insane. And also comes as, put D4 up on the screen. This is significant. So the IDF, the former IDF chief, has confirmed that Gaza casualties are at over 200,000. So that is both killed and wounded. That matches up very closely with the Gaza Ministry of Health that we're always told, the Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health, where here you have the IDF confirm it. I will say that many other independent experts have looked at the overall numbers, not just of direct killings by the IDF, but also, malnutrition, starvation deaths, the lack of medical care, people who are buried under the rubble, all of those sorts of things, and said that the likely numbers are much, much higher than what the Gaza Health Ministry have said, in the hundreds of thousands in terms of number of people killed. But even if we just take this estimate, even if we assume that these numbers are accurate, you're talking about 10% of the population of the Gaza Strip either killed or injured. And now former IDF chief backing that up. And at the same time, we also have the Gaza City, a mass bombing campaign in Gaza City. They've effectively said, hey, if you stay there, we're going to assume you're a terrorist, and we're just going to, we're going to bomb, and we're going to murder everybody who remains. So forcing people out of Gaza City, which of course previously was the largest city in the Gaza Strip. We can put up some of the images here on the screen. I believe this was a university here that they are detonating, blowing up, just destroying any sort of cultural institution. These are, high rises. I don't know if they're high rise apartment buildings. You can see the tents in the foreground there of displaced people. Everybody in the Gaza Strip has been displaced probably multiple times at this point. And here again, you can see how close they are to those tents of displaced people. This is from Al Jazeera, posted this from Eye on Palestine, where you can see, again, more of the explosions, detonations that are happening in Gaza City right now. So this is happening as we speak. And we also don't want to lose sight of another important piece of this, which is there's been continued attacks on the West Bank, and this really escalated. We can put these images up on the screen. They rounded up all of the men, and you can see them in this one particular West Bank town. You can see them being rounded up and marched out here in absolutely horrifying scenes. So any basically quote unquote military age man, my understanding is that they have held on to hundreds of them as effectively hostages here. And this was in retaliation for an attack committed by I believe 2 men from this town on the IDF. And so in reprisal here, just rounding up all of the men in this West Bank town. And it's important, Saagar, to keep your eye on the West Bank because, with regard to Gaza, they say, oh, it's Hamas and human shields and blah, blah, blah. Well, the West Bank is run by the Palestinian Authority, had nothing to do with October 7th. And yet we see an aggressive violent crackdown and mass annexation that has gotten so widespread that Jasper Nathaniel said, listen, effectively they've annexed the West Bank at this point because the assertion of control is so complete from Israel at this point that to say it's anything other than annexed, and obviously this has been given a green light by the United States of America.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Charlie Kirk thing really really obscured this, but here was the direct quote that he said on September 11th, BB. A Palestinian state will not be established. This entire place is ours. We will preserve it for our heritage, for our land, and for our security. Signing a ceremonial West Bank expansion plan. It's there, out in the open. He just says this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, look, I guess it's not a surprise. The Kirk thing obscured any potential outrage. And then, by the way, the ambassador and the Secretary of State basically go and affirm that same position the very next day. So that's where we are.
Yep, that's where we are. And last piece I'll put up on the screen here, just a news article about this West Bank crackdown. This is from Al Jazeera. They say Israeli forces arrest over 100 Palestinians and impose a curfew in the West Bank. Israeli forces have detained more than 100 Palestinians and raids on the occupied West Bank city of Tel Karam and have imposed a curfew, Al Jazeera Arabic reports, as the Israeli offensive in Gaza City has forced more than 200,000 Palestinians to flee the largest urban center in the enclave. As reported earlier, Israel's military has been conducting raids in Tel Karam after it said 2 Israeli soldiers were wounded when their vehicle was hit by an explosive device. So that's where we are.
Yes, that's right. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. As usual, talk too much, but it is what it is. We'll try and cover it tomorrow, and we'll see you all then. Appreciate it.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free, and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.